You cannot focus on. We are going to be looking at your welcome to another section today. Very good afternoon. I remember your favorite so Komichi is the senior ICT instructor, and I will be looking today into user experience design. We're going to be looking into user experience. We in the last class section we need to look at the interface, look at the principles of user interface design, the models of user interface design, models of user interface design. We looked at so many things about user interface design, how important user interface design is. So now we're going to be using user experience, which is concerned with how people feel when they use your application. So why user interface is about the aesthetics, user experience is about how people feel. If there is too much clutter on your application, do people get do people come to your application once after they use your application once, they never want to come back to your app anymore? How you engage users on your app, how you get feedback from users on your app. These are all parts what we'll be looking at user experience. Now, let's jump right into the class, okay? Now, we'll be looking. Okay, now, so now we're going to have an introduction to user experience what? Design. Now, what is user experience design? First, user experience design encapsulates every aspect of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its software products. UX design is the analytical and architectural process of creating products that provide meaningful and relevant experience to users. It involves the design of the entire process of acquiring and integrating the process, encompassing aspects of branding, design, usability, and function. Yes. So user experience is concerned basically about everything about the company. Yeah. Everything about the company. It talks about your in user experience is talking about, you can see us talking about things like branding, design, usability, and function. For instance, now you cannot be building an app for Coca-Cola and go and be using green and white. When Coca-Cola's color is red and white. This is part of the branding aspect, it's part of user experience. The design is just concerned purely user experience is just about how do you present, how do people perceive, how do people see your application, your software, how people perceive it whenever they come to it. Now, why often conflicted, UI and UX are distinct disciplines. User interface is the saddle, the stair-ups, and the reins. User experience is the feeling of riding the horse. Now, perfect. So while user interface is talking about the tools you need to work, the user experience is talking about how you feel, how users feel when they use those tools that you have provided. Are you seeing the difference between the two? User interface is talking about input controls, navigation, etc. This is all about tools. These are all tools, accessories that users use in your application. But user experience is talking about how they use these things. What do they expect from these things? User interface focuses on visual and interactive elements, e.g., colors, buttons, typography, whereas user experience focuses on the overall journey, logic, flow, and resolution of user pain points. So, user interface is more concerned about the beauty, how beautiful, how good your app looks, whereas user experience is focused on the overall journey, logic, flow, and resolution of it. So it's talking about how the user moves all the way from the beginning of your application to the end of using your application. So you can see user interface and user experience should not truly be confused, but in truth, they are like two twins, conjoined twins that cannot be separated. I won't lie to you, they cannot be separated. You cannot be good user interface and not be good user experience. You need both of them to work together so you can produce product. All this we are learning is all about producing a very good product. Okay, now let's continue. Elements of UX design. UX design is structured around five foundational layers. The elements of user experience is experienced by Jesse James Garrett. Jesse James Garrett is the man responsible for bringing about the elements of user experience design. Now, remember, we looked at the elements of user interface design where we talked about navigation and input controls. We talked about navigation, input controls, etc. Now we're looking at the element of user experience. And number one, strategy, defining user needs and business objectives. Now, your application has to provide a perfect bridge across the needs of the end user and the objectives of the business. Yeah, yeah. Your application, for instance, is a fitness application, and you are building that fitness application for a particular organization that runs a fitness center, for example. Now, your application must user experience is talking about the fact that your application must have a proper strategy to bridge the gap between and what is the objective of every business? The objective of every business is to remain profitable and they can remain in business. So your application must be able to look at, okay, this is what the user needs. Now, the user needs, for instance, the user needs to know how, like if you build an application for a fitness mention, the user needs to know, okay, how many walks do they need to take in a day? How many push-ups do they need, and all of that. And the business, on the other hand, does not wants to provide this information to the user, but also wants something in return. The business, on the other hand, also wants to encourage the user to come back to the business and patronize them. So this is exactly where you draw the line. So it has to, so elements of your strategy is talking about, you have to define the user needs and the objectives of the business, so you can bridge the gap between the two. You must know what the end users want and know what the business wants. The business wants to remain profitable. The business wants to offer a service. The business wants to offer a product that is going to help, that will help to achieve that will help to solve a particular problem of the end user. No one goes about creating products when you don't have a problem to solve with that product. Either your product is solving a new problem or improving on the solution of an exit or improving on the way a particular problem is solved. Now the next thing is scope. After you have gotten the strategy, you have defined the needs of the user and defined the business objective. The next thing is the scope. Determine the functional specifications and functional role and content what requirements. Now need to know how far you need to go in it. So we're talking about the specifications of the application. Now, over here, you can have to interact with, so as a UX engineer, you may have to have some interactions with your back end engineers, to understand, okay, what kind of server are you using? These are part of the scope. That's why I would say the final functional specifications and content what requirements. You need to know, okay, this as a user experience person, how would people feel about this app if this I keep using this app for the next 10 years? How would they feel? Okay, if this app keeps upgrading and is growing, how will they feel by that time? So that's what we talk about scope. Structure. Design the interaction architecture and information flow. You have to use pen and you have to be able to say, okay, this is how the user is going to move from point A to point B. This is how the user will interact with this application, and this is where they are going to arrive when they finish. Skeleton. Wireframing the interface. You must be able to draw. It's very important. Wireframe the interface, navigation, and information what design. So you can see UI can even be said to be a part and parcel of UX in a way. So the skeleton is talking about your prototype. Okay, why we call it a prototype in UI, we call it a skeleton in UX, whereby you wireframe the interface, the navigation, and the design of the information, and then surface the final visual what presentation. So when UI and UX comes together, you get to produce very beautiful and dynamic products that will solve both a user's problem, that solve the problems of a user, and after solving the problems of a user, they don't just stop there, they also achieve the objectives of the business that engage that particular the objectives of that particular business that needs that product. And this is what it is. So user experience design elements include strategy. You have to know the needs of the end user and also the business objectives. And a business objective is always and will always remain to make money and to stay profitable. The scope, you have to determine the functional specifications. Okay. Oh no. No. The scope, the elements of UX design, the strategy. Number one, you have to bridge the gap. You have to, like we said earlier, you have to bridge the gap between the needs of the user, and the business objectives, and the objective of a business to stay profitable. The scope, you must determine the functional specification and content requirement. What are the things that this application needs for it to be able to work and be able to solve the business goals and also the user's needs? For example, it's at this point you can also determine whether you want to make use of certain things like certain plugins like Firebase, Google Maps, etc. in your application. Now, structure, you have to design the interaction architecture and information flow. You have to be able to say, okay, this is the process that when a user wants to achieve task A, this is how they have to go before they achieve task A. When a user wants to achieve task B, this is how they have to go. Except when you have an application that does more than one thing, of which most applications do more than one thing. So in that case, you must be able to let users know you must be able to properly design and plan in the structure how the interaction will move all the way from the point of input to the point of processing down to the point of output. Now, this is what you must understand about the structure, how information flows from point A to point B in the application. Skeleton, we are framing the interface. So you must be able to sit down and be able to drop a prototype of what we are expecting of how this will work. And this your prototype must include defining the user needs and business objectives, scope, the requirements to be able to bridge the gap between the needs of the user and the business, structure, how information will flow from point A to point B. All this must be shown in your skeleton. Your skeleton is like the prototype of your user experience. While the surface is talking about the final presentation, the final job. You can see all that has to take place before that happens. Significance of UX. Excellent UX design reduces software abandonment rate. That's number one. If your user experience design is good, it's going to reduce the rate at which people abandon your software. Some people have written mobile apps that users just run for once. They just use the application once and they never come back to the app again. This is one of the things that user experience will help you achieve. Now, minimize development costs by identifying flaws before programming begins. Yeah, if you have a proper user experience, if your user experience is properly patterned and designed according to these elements and this process, if it is following that, you can identify a lot of issues that users are going to have in the process of using your application before the programming even starts. And if you identify those things, you can solve those problems ahead of time and not need to suffer users to come back a second time. And not need to go and hire a separate developer or pay extra money for certain things to come into limelight. So that's why we say it minimizes development costs by identifying flaws before the programming what begins. And then we say increase user retention. Now, UX helps to increase the way users stay on your app, how much users are retained on that particular app, and it drives direct business what conversions. Yes, when your user experience is good, you are going to have more people patronize your products. Yes, that's perfectly how it works. If users are happy with what they are getting, if users are happy with how your application makes them feel. It doesn't matter the competitors that may be existing or that they may have, they will be happy to always come back and use your application at any time, any day. I, for one, I have multiple banks, but anytime money enters any of my other accounts, I am always happy to transfer it to OP because I will always easily use OP to make payments. And I'm very sure that some of us have other applications that we are specifically kind of attached to. And that's because these applications, their user experience, the way the applications make us to feel is better. Okay? Application make us feel happy. We feel happy when using the application. We feel that we get to things easily when we use the application, but we don't feel like we feel like we get to things easily when we use the application. That is exactly how it works in this particular case. Now, yeah, so if you can, so that is why people will keep coming back. That was the direct business call. In complex application architecture, UX determines whether a powerful backend actually usable by a human being. Yes, if user experience also determines whether the back end is okay for a human being. Now, what are the principles of user experience design? Number one, user centricity. Design decisions must be driven by actual user data, not engineering assumptions. Yes, design specifications. Any way that you must make sure, that's why we say that you need to gather data from the end users and also the technical people. You must know how the end users intend to use this application. So your application, the first principle of user experience is that your application must be user centric. It is all about the user. Never you forget the fact that it's all about what? The end user. A business cannot fund itself. So everything you are doing is all about the end user. So you must make your decisions by making use of actual user data, not by engineering assumptions. Don't just stay in your head and say, okay, if we do it like it is going to, people will be okay with it. Actually look at similar applications that are doing that same thing and now find out how are they going about this particular task. And if you know how they are going about that particular task, you can now know whether if they are going about it like this and users are comfortable with it, you can follow that same path. Or if you think you have a better way to do it, you can do that. So design decisions must be driven by actual user what? Data. Users also have some, especially in the area of color concepts, users have already trained their mind to to attach certain color combinations to certain kind of things. These are part of what you must consider. User centricity. User experience must consider that it's all about who will use the application, not a technical person like yourself, but the mommy that sells vegetable in the market, the man in his office that is doing some work, how they are going to use it. And this is one of the major sources of concern. And then we have hierarchy. Information architecture must guide the user naturally from macro to micro concepts. Yes, hierarchy. You must prioritize information on the application according to how much the user will use it. we use it. That's why we say from user, naturally from macro. Macro means larger things that will be used more regularly. Let's just put it that way. It is easier to understand that way. Hierarchy, things that people will use much more often, let them be first easily accessible, and those things that people will hardly use, let them be least accessible. So prioritize what the user will use on more. That's why when you open the OP app, it's quite unfortunate that I can't open it. So I could have seen, I would have explained better what I want to do. But if you open the OP app, you can see the first set of things you have is buy airtime, buy data, this, that. These are things that users are naturally going to do regularly from time to time when they come to their banking application. Yeah. Yeah, and then application. So they made those options for us. So then other things like your profile, to edit your BVN information, your NIN information. These ones are much more hidden, not need to be that are not overly open because of that they have less priority. So they are a micro concept. Accessibility, the system must be usable by people of all abilities and disabilities. Your system to work, it must be usable by people of various climes. We have highly technically skilled people use it, medium technically skilled people use it, that's intermediate people, and you have low technically skilled people also use it. So you must make sure that your application can accessible to all of these categories of user. And also physical disability. If you can integrate voice into your application, integrate it so people that don't have hands can also make use of your application. If you can integrate whatever it is you can integrate to make it more accessible to the end user, no matter their disability or their ability, should be put into consideration of user. It should be one of the guiding principles of your user experience there. Context, understanding the environment, device, the emotional state of the user interacting with the system. Now you must know how the user feel. You must be able to put yourself in the user's shoes to understand how this user is going to actually use this thing when they come into your application. As I would say, context. So context can actually change the meaning of a particular thing. Context can actually change the meaning of a particular thing at a particular time. Okay, let's move forward. What are the best practices in user experience? Adhering to standard user experience patterns ensures success. Conduct exhaustive user research before sketching. Now, the number one thing you should do as a best practice is that conduct conduct exhaustive user. Make sure you research on the end user. Get data from the end user. Are you getting me? Before you start sketching anything on the system or before making any recommendations, try to get people around who are actually going to use this application and try to find out from them, gather data from them. What are the difficulties they are having in similar applications? What are the difficulties? You need to know the difficulties they are having in similar applications, and what are, if there are similar applications, what issues are they having with those applications? If there are no similar applications, ask them this kind of application, how would they want it to work? So this way you can get something with exhaustive user research. So ensure that you research very well before sketching. Implement iterative usability testing. That means you should have, when we say iterative, it means you should be able to jump from one to the other. Okay, have multiple patterns. That's okay. Let people be able to use the different sketches that you have made, the different prototypes, and then let them decide which prototype they are much more compatible. Number three, keep user journeys as short as possible. As much as possible, let it be easy, very fast for people to get to what they want. That's just the truth. That's why when your application depends on internet or you don't want to know, let it be as short as well. Let people find it easy to get to whatever it is they want. Prioritize loading speed. Prioritize loading speed. Yes, your application should load very fast. People are getting more and more impatient with applications, so you have to make sure your application loads very fast as a core UX metric. It should be a very major metric that your application loads fast and provide clear system feedback for every user action. You must give feedback to the end user for everything that they do. Now, UX design process, number one, discover. You have to do field research, quantitative analysis, and stakeholder interviews. Yes, you have to research on the end users. Like I said, the first thing you must do is to research on the end users for a better user experience. Find out from the end users. If you are, then also find out from the business. That's why we say user needs and business what objective. So you can bridge the gap properly. Create user define and create user personas, empathy maps, and user journey flows. At least create personas for different kind of users and how they will feel when they use that particular application. Idea, brainstorming solutions, sketching and mapping information architecture. Brainstorm. After you have gathered information from the field, you have checked different user personas, how they will feel on different versions of the same application. You now have to think of ideas, come up with solutions that is going to work to make it possible. Prototype. Building wireframes and clickable what? Prototypes. Yes. Create your wireframes and let your prototypes be clickable so that people can actually test these prototypes and see whether which is more comfortable. Then test, validating the prototype with the target demographic users. The users that are going to be targeted, you have to validate the prototype with them. The people that are going to make use of it. If it's younger people that will use it, you can allow your application to be a bit complex. But if you're going to have older people who don't really have time to use your application, but depend on demographic, you know what each kind of demographic needs. You need to know what you should focus on. Like if you are going to be building something, if you wanted to build something like TikTok now, knowing that TikTok is a platform for teenagers, one of your major priorities should be fast access to video, to information. Yeah, you must make it like immersive experience. We call it immersive experience. Videos coming in back to back. That kind of thing. People are used to that process, and you must prioritize speed. If you are dealing with very young people and your application is optional, it's not something like a banking app that if they whether they wait or they don't wait, they must take their money. So they must be patient with it. When you're dealing with very young people, you have to have a lot of focus on speed, easy access to information of what they're looking for, easy usage of your app, easy accessibility of your app if you're dealing with them. If it's a much more older generation, they can kind of they have more patience. An older generation will have more patience than a much more younger generation due to their current exposure. An older generation another generation might also, in fact, the most important, just know the different demographic. I don't want to, because if we're doing digital marketing, I would have been able to break this down much more deeper. But we are going to have courses on digital marketing upcoming on this channel. There is so much we have in stock. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, you should subscribe right now. And I promise you, you won't regret it. We have a whole lot in stock for you. And turn on your notification bell so that whenever we post new videos, every week we post new videos. So that whenever we post a new video, you can get notification and you can follow up on it. So when you know the different demographics of users that are going to use your application, you will now be able to know how to bridge the gap. If you're going to be working with much more younger users, they have higher requirements for what an application should be like. An older generation has much lesser expectations of what an application should be like. Are you getting me? If you're going to be dealing with technical skilled users, there are certain things you can bypass. You can allow certain things happen, okay, because you are dealing with technically skilled, highly skilled technical individual. But when you are dealing with novices, when people that will use your application are more of novices, people that don't really know much about the tech world, that don't really know much about the tech industry, when you are dealing with those kind of people, you have to know that you must make your application as easy to access as possible. Make it easy for people to get access to what they want. Because I can share a story with you. A few years ago, my dad bought for his mom, that's my grandmother, he bought her a smartphone. And the smartphone of those days, of course, I think that was a Sagem or something like that. He bought her the phone. And honestly, the woman did not understand what was happening in the phone. And the woman simply abandoned the phone and kept for him. He had to go and buy a smaller phone, a normal touchlight phone that she was okay and comfortable with. So you can see every generation, you must understand the demography of the generation that will be using your application more. And you must understand their interests, you must understand their priorities. And that's why we say your application has to be what centric. It's all about the user. Yes, business is important, but it's all about the user. But if the user does not feel okay and comfortable using your application, they are not going to patronize your business. Actually, that application is the source of your business. So you must take note of that. So distinguishing between a good and bad UX design. A good user experience design is frictionless, no frictions, invisible, anticipatory. A user logs into an e-commerce dashboard and intuitively understands how to track an order without reading a manual. Yes, a good user experience is that if a user comes to your platform, they don't need a special tutorial or a YouTube video or a special coach to come and guide them on how to use it, no matter their level. As soon as they land on your platform, they should be able to seamlessly find their way around your application. That is experience. But if your application is such that if someone that has used the application before does not come and explain to the end user that to this particular user that this is how you should use this application, then honestly, you have had a bad user what experience. People should be able to find it easy to make use of your application. Bad UX will say confusing, bloated, frustrating. A user attempts to submit a form, encounters a validation error, but the system fails to indicate which field caused the error, forcing the user to guess. You can see this is another problem. This is just a case scenario. I just gave this ones as case scenarios in my manual. And I said, now common errors in US design, designing for the engineer, creating complex workflows that make sense to a database administrator or confuse a lay person. Don't design your application for professionals, design your application for novices. Altogether, for what? For novices. Ignoring edge cases, failing to design screens for empty states, e.g., what the user sees when they have zero messages or error states. You need to provide for all those different things. When there's an error, when your app does not load properly, you should be able to provide for that. When your app loads on maybe it's a website and encounters an error 404, you have to provide for that. If they encounter an error 403, you have to provide for that. Feature creep, adding unvalidated features that clutter the primary user journey. Don't add too many features. Just add the most important and necessary features. I always say this regularly. I said Facebook, for example, Facebook as an example. When Facebook came out with it, people were happy to go into it. It was not as complicated as it is right now. Right now, Facebook is a very complicated platform, especially the Meta Business Suite. In fact, some people even have to go and learn how to use Meta Business Suite. You see, this is a very good example of bad user experience. We are used to the simplicity of Facebook, but as Facebook came up with many of these their modifications, adding so many features, jam-packing so many features, which I'm not saying it's bad, but we're saying that as they keep jam-packing many features, you can see that they clutter the roots in, and it becomes more complicated for users to get to what they want. Yeah. That's why they had to create separate application for sending message, for replying messages, have normal Facebook application. Every one of these things help cause issues for the end user. Now, this our chapter says a theoretical thing. It's a create a basic user persona and a user journey map for a business review platform where users can rate local enterprises. I would say the persona name Sarah the Explorer. Demography, she's 28 years old. She's a marketing professional and lives in an urban center. Now you can see she's a heavy mobile user. Now we're trying to build a user journey map for a business review. This is a business review platform. So a business review platform. This lady now we can see that of course she should have some knowledge of tech already. Since she's in an urban area, she uses her phone. She uses her phone very much. Or her Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. It is that she's a marketing professional. Then she's about 28 years old. And then goes, wants to find reliable, highly rated coffee shops and local service businesses quickly. Now, what she wants is to be able to find what she's looking for, any business she's looking for, very, very fast. Now, pain points. Hates fake reviews, dislike platform that require a 10-minute sign-up process just to read a review. So she wants a very fast, seamless platform. She does not want to a situation whereby people with bad reviews are going to be rated first before people with good reviews on your platform. She doesn't want that. And also, she doesn't want to go through a stressful sign up process. She wants to just sign up easily and directly. So, this is the persona of the user. Now, what's the user journey? Leave a review for you. Trigger. Sarah has a great email and wants to share her experience. This is the first thing. You must understand the trigger. What is the thing activating this? Why does this user want to take this particular action on this app? Now, action one, search. She opens the app and types the restaurant name into the global search bar. She may type you must also understand that she may either type the restaurant name or she may just type restaurants. Yeah. She may not type a specific restaurant's name and just type restaurants. You should be able to, she will navigate, clicks the correct restaurant from the auto suggestion drop down. You should be able to provide auto suggestion based on the restaurants you already have stored in your database. This helps to advance the user experience because people are already used to Google's auto suggestion. Interact, clicks the prominent write a review floating action button. She can no in her case now, okay, she knows the restaurant because she has had a great meal already. She needs to search. She searches for the restaurant, she navigates, she clicks it in the drop down, and she sees a write a review. And she says she writes a review, she taps a 5-star graphic, types a quick 2-sentence review, and attaches a photo from a camera roll. Result on task publish, she send displays a sources animation and awards her a local guide by triggering a positive emotional what? Response. So this is just the principle of reward. So what we are saying is that first of all, let's call her Sarah. Sarah needs to be able to search for this restaurant and find this exact restaurant when she sees it. And when it should be able to suggest her while she's typing, this restaurant should pop up. Okay? It should pop up. And also, if she should be able to see if she wants, because she wants to leave a review, the write a review button has to be very prominent and obvious to her. It shouldn't be hidden somewhere that she has to click. And when she clicks to write a review, we're saying that she doesn't want to go through a registration process. So we may ask her in this case now to write a review as a guest. And ask her to, write as a guest. She can provide the screen name. You can just take the screen name only from her. She types her screen name, and then she can do every other thing seamlessly without going through a rigorous sign-up process. And for those who will go through a sign-up process, we have to make the sign-up process as short as possible. One, use the power of Ajax to validate forms on the same page. Always refer people to fields where they make mistakes in the process of sign up, or give user real feedback, compensate for low loading and network, like when files are being uploaded, that you have to compensate for that by providing users with like a progress bar or something to be able to give users constant feedback. This way, they will believe that your application is alive. There are so many web applications today that are there are so many web applications today that I will not lie to you. So many web applications that we have today that feel like desktop applications. Okay, it feels so much like desktop applications. This is exactly what we are going to, what we are talking about in terms of user experience. So I want you to know that one, user experience is all about the journey of the user from point A. User interface is about the looks of the website or the mobile app, desktop app. But user experience is about how usable is your application, how happy is your, what satisfaction does the user gain when they use your application. That is what user is. I want to take note of this, of the take note of. So when you are designing products next, make sure focus on the special experience, and don't forget one important thing about user experience must be user centric. Must be centralized. It's all about the user, because the user is who that provides the money that funds that business. So you must properly bridge the end user of that particular. You must bridge the end user, and you must bridge the gap properly between the end user and business objective. Every business is in business to make it. So you must bridge. I see next section is that responsive and some of the principles that guide response to you. How do you make websites that are actually optimized for mobile devices? But we have more users visiting websites through mobile devices than they are visiting websites through their tablets and through their computers. So you must be able to provide for them. And how do you make this user happy? Responsive web design has to find a interface and the to provide quality solution that works perfectly. To remain your favorite instructor, Oluchi, senior ICT instructor. And also, for those of you who have not subscribed to the channel, this is Prince Tech Mastery. We have new videos. We are here for everything all about tech. All we know here is tech, programming, tutorials, software engineering, etc. That's all we are going to be looking in this channel. That's what this is on. And I promise you, if you subscribe to this channel, turn on the button. Have a lovely